Hi, hope everybody is doing well. I'm just going to share my screen and I think we can start with the presentation. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes, Alina, it's visible.
All right, great. So we can begin. So a very, very good evening to one and all present here. Today, Team Women Up, that is Akarshak Agarwal, Elena Arya, Mahima Singh, and Stuti Srivastava present to you the topic, Reducing Crimes Against Women. First of all, before we start, I'd like to explain the significance of our team name. We've all heard this phrase, man up, right? Like man up to your actions or pull it all together like a man. So we thought, why not say woman up too? So first off, we have a short video that we prepared and we really hope you like it. All right, so the topic that we got, actually the topic we are fortunate enough to get is extremely strong. However, its implementation in India isn't. India is a dangerous country for women and we all know that. Trust me, I speak with experience. I still remember dreading the walk home from my classes and tuitions post 8 p.m. in New Delhi. Every single woman I know quickens her pace post 7:30 in the evening, hoping to survive the day, hoping to reach home safe, and hoping to still wake up with a smile on her face the next morning. In India, few women report crimes, fewer offenders are prosecuted, and even fewer women get justice. Now, we're not here to talk about the dire need of reducing crimes against women because that's utterly obvious. We're here to address questions like how and how soon. We're here to prevent, we're here to safeguard, we're here to provide solutions. So, without further ado, let's begin. Here are a few misconceptions that we found while researching on the topic. Firstly, violent sexual aggravators represent a tiny percentage of the population. Several times, this is so wrong. Several times, we don't even know that sexual aggravators are around us. There is this misconception that they're usually present in rural areas. No, there are as many in urban areas as there are in rural, if not more. 1/4 of the men have committed the crime of domestic violence. It might be happening with our neighbors or our loved ones and we wouldn't even know about it. 1/10 of the men have sexually harassed women. In a populated country like ours, ratios like 1/4 and 1/10 do not account for small numbers. They account for millions and millions of men.
Often men think that yes once means yes for lifetime. Well, consent is to agree on something or to allow something to happen. Anyone in change in their state of mind has the power to withdraw their consent. A no should be accepted with same regard that yes was greeted with previously.
Only law will protect women from violence. It is worth quoting late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru remarked, legislation cannot by itself normally solve deep-rooted social problems. One has to approach them in other ways too.
Mahima, we are not able to hear you. Mahima, your signal seems to be weak. So can you just put your video off and we can just try on audio?
It is worth quoting late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who remarked, legislation cannot by itself normally solve deep-rooted social problems. One has to approach them in other ways too, but legislation is necessary and essential that it may give that push and have educated factors, as well as the legal sanctions about it. Women should understand men and men should understand women. Both should work together to eradicate the menace. Despite the prevalence of violence against women in their own homes, dozens of countries around the world do not have specific laws against domestic violence. Reaction in the form of declaration of enhanced punishment is largely an expression and helplessness and frustration. The emphasis should be on prevention and rehabilitation. Violence against women is frighteningly simple and complex. Violence will stop when perpetrators stop. And there is one most common misconception that women face only physical abuse. Busting that myth, we'll carry onwards discussing various types of abuse women face. Mental and emotional abuse against women. If their bodies don't carry any scars, if their wounds are not visible and the blood isn't oozing out of their veins, you will probably think that they are living a happiest and full of fun life. But is that really the case? Well, we think not. In fact, even among women who have experienced violence from a partner, more than half report that the men's emotional abuse is what caused them the greatest harm. It is not the mind which leaves behind greatest traumas. Though mental and emotional trauma is a result of every other crime, but at the same time, it is the foundational step of each and every kind of abuse. Perpetuation of violence against women in India continues as a result of many systems of sexism and patriarchy. From beginning of childhood, parents discriminate in their children, and we can't even imagine how much toll such discriminatory actions have on minds of little girls. Can you imagine how much thoughts are evoked in women's mind when someone starts following her in dark scanty lanes or stalk her sitting behind screen? How gender discrimination is strengthened in society when at work male counterparts mob against a female employee, or just writing derogatory things about female online can ruin her life. Sexually harassing on through actions or visual, passing lewd comments, sexually cursing them, or blackmailing partners to do specific things, humiliating them, accusing them for everything, emotionally neglecting them just because they are women is an abuse which have very great repercussions. Many healthcare professionals still show prejudice against women who are victims of certain crimes. There is even no standard procedure for determining sexual assault victims, which worsen the problem and are psychologically damaging for women. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice. Defamation. So you will defame her name and image because she said no, or you will go on spreading rumors about her because you just simply disagree with her. Well, all these can lead you behind bars or fine under Section 499 and 500 of IPC. Insult to modesty. A woman can face derogatory and obscene gestures by the creeps anywhere and anytime. Any obscene gestures or remarks made with the intention to insult womanhood are made against a woman amount to the crime of insulting the woman's modesty. It could result in punishment to the offender under Section 509A of IPC. Sexual harassment. Women face sexual harassment everywhere. Think of that boss who asks you for favors in return of the promotion, or the man who sat next to you in a public transport and tried to touch you inappropriately, or the uncle in your family who always finds a way to touch you lovingly. I can go on giving examples of such cases because it's everyone and everywhere. However, amongst all of us, women do have a safe place to go. Quote, sexual harassment is a punishable offense under Section 354A of IPC. Stalking. You remember the other day when your sister came home and told that she heard some footsteps following her. This is what exactly stalking is. If a person is being stalked, she may feel stressed, vulnerable, or anxious, have trouble in sleeping or concentrating at work. Remember, in situations like this, you are not alone. You can always knock on the doors of law and demand justice. Stalking is a crime under Section 350D of IPC. Inviting her to a party, getting friendly, and then offering her spiked drink seems like an easy and safe option to commit crimes, right? Or impersonating someone and trying to come close to her. Well, to burst your bubble, sex coercion is a punishable crime under Section 376 and 357B of IPC and could result the offender jail up to 7 years or lifetime. Blackmailing, the threat of revealing information about a person unless certain demands are made. Women often face blackmailing, and sometimes the offender are from the very close group. Blackmailing is a non-bailable crime under Section 384 of IPC and could result in jail up to 3 years of fine. Research says that more than 90% of women have faced mental or emotional abuse in their lifetime, but we don't have exact numbers on it, as most of it is not considered as crime and is deeply rooted in societies. Though it goes on unreported mostly, still we have numbers on it, which is totally shocking. 26 females are being stalked every day. Every day, one female is being cyber blackmailed. On average, 2 females face sexual harassment daily. These are the some reports on the basis of NCRB.
While doing the research, most studies on gender-based violence focus on its physical, social, and psychological manifestations. So it was pretty difficult to find out about economic violence. Economic violence is when the abuser has complete control over families' finances, thereby reducing women to complete dependence for money. Men may use the fact that they have more money to dominate women. It may involve putting women on strict allowance or forcing them to beg for money. This is why many women quietly save money in strange places, like under mattresses, where their husband can't find it. When demonetization was announced, these women were dead, as all their covered savings were reduced to nothing overnight. Although they might be living comfortably and in luxury, but they don't have any control over money or how it should be spent. Biggest form of economic violence is dowry. Although you might think it's limited to rulers, educated people, but it's widespread practice. Unfortunately, economic violence results in deepening power and compromises educational attainment and developmental opportunities for women. It leads to physical violence, promotes sexual exploitation, maternal morbidity, and mortality. It also results in trafficking of women and girls. It is quite telling that economic or financial abuse not even feature in the list of abuses that was by the National Health Survey. India doesn't fully see financial dependence and abuse as a problem. According to the National Family Health Survey by the Union Health Ministry in 2018, every third woman since the age of 15 has faced domestic violence of various forms across the country. How common is financial abuse? Consider this shocking statistic. Financial abuse occurs in 99% virtually all abusive relationships, according to the Center for Financial Security. To name a few laws and organizations, Section 3 in Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, for the purpose of this act, any act, omission, or commission or conduct of the respondent shall constitute domestic violence. Section 88A of the Indian Penal Code, whoever, being the husband or the relative of women, subjects such women to cruelty shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may exceed 3 years and also be liable to fine. Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. If any person, after the commencement of the act, gives or takes or abets the giving or taking of dowry, be punishable with imprisonment for a term shall not be less than 5 years, and with the fine shall not be less than 15,000 rupees or the amount of value of such pay. National Commission for Women is the statutory body of Government of India, generally concerned with advising the government on all policy matters affecting women. State Commission for Women, all the respective states have their own State Commission for Women. Gulabi Gang is an extraordinary women's movement formed in 2006 by Sampath Pal Devi in the Banda district of Uttar Pradesh. It was initially intended to punish oppressive husbands, fathers, and brothers and combat domestic violence and desertion. Azad Foundation focuses on women who continue in abusive relationships because of their financial dependence on their husbands. The base organization trains women in professions traditionally close to them and helps them achieve financial independence. National Coalition Against Violence vision is to create a culture where domestic violence is not tolerated and where society empowers victims and survivors while holding abusers accountable. There are also domestic violence hotlines, management for domestic violence, been set up to prevent such abuses.
Societal or social abuse is the least aroused topic of any era we talk about, which has a major impact on women's physical, social, and emotional development. This topic looks at how to confront and prevent potential negative outcomes in women exposed to social violence and how to intervene and set up necessary resources. Despite of these high estimates, women exposure to social violence has received a very little attention during these previous decades. Yet, social violence is an especially important topic to study during this developmental period as it influences women's development across multiple domains. So, social abuses arises from abusive relationships wherein the woman is cut off from the society or not permitted to keep contact with anybody. That is, a woman is forced to be alone, which deliberately leads to depression and stress. This type of abuse also includes derogatory comments from the society and the surroundings, wherein they face criticism, experiences hostility, and obviously there is a lack of self-respect towards these women facing abuses. This may stem from insecurities from men's side. To combine in words, I say inferiority complex is the root for social abuse. This increases the women's sense of isolation, which leads to a state of mind where a woman starts feeling alone. She faces loneliness. A woman starts gaining negative self-esteem. How does a social abuse looks like? To put a light, how does a social abuse look like? What comes under it? Now it's time to give some light on it and should stop sabotaging women in our society. Confining a person to their home or room to keep someone within limits, to prevent someone from going beyond a particular limit, area, etc. To keep a person in a place, say a prison. To force or cause someone. Checking or interfering with your email, phone, or social media. Interfering with your personal space, indulging more into the personal activities, make you feel uncomfortable and insecure, sometimes irritating. Intentional embarrassment in front of others. It can be a sole intention to make the other you feel bad. For instance, to make a joke in front of others, humiliation and shame. Both makes a person feel bad about self. Stalking. The act or an intent of stalking or harassing another is an aggressive, often threatening in an illegal manner, needing to know every of your activities. Using social media and internet for damaging every info about you, this highs the level of depressive symptoms among those facing social abuse, reported having more negative interactions. A similar study concluded in 2016 involving 1,700 people found the threatful risk of depression and anxiety among people facing this kind of social abuse using the social platform. Sharing the private photos or videos of yours without the permission. According to Attorney Smith, a researcher in UK, said anytime you take someone else's photo from a social media page and repost without permission, even if you are in the picture, you are breaking the law. They are using the image when they do not have the permission to do so. This is a copyright infringement, but unfortunately, here there is no highlight for such crime. But there are some laws and preventions for the women by our government. Number one is an act which provides protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace and for the prevention and readdressal of complaints of sexual harassment and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. The law is the Prevention, Prohibition and Readdressal Act 2013. So the next we go is the second one, the National Commission of Women Act 1990, for which the current chairperson is Rekha Sharma. This act aims to improve the status of women and work for the current empowerment. Some functions of National Commission for Women are to increase awareness of the people against the discrimination and bad customs against the women, to analyze the policy and programming concerning with the different ministries, whether or not it is effective in the perspective of gender justice, But sadly, for social abuse, there is only cybercrime law, which is not enough concerning to what is actually social abuse.
All right, so what is physical abuse against women? So let me ask you one thing. When I say the word physical abuse, what's the first thing that comes across your mind? And whatever that's coming, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Firstly, violence against women. These are violent acts primarily or exclusively committed against women or girls. Exactly. There's an entire section for crimes against females. This itself is a testimony of the fact that women suffer more torture than anybody in the world. Secondly, injury through bodily contact. So, while doing my research, I remember going through various definitions of physical abuse. Almost everywhere, it was generally defined as any accidental physical injury inflicted upon the woman by a man. You know what was common in all the definitions I could find? Each of them emphasized on the word intentional. And honestly, I don't agree with that. In a society like ours, the word intentional or unintentional should hold no meaning, as several times men don't even know what they're inflicting upon the women is wrong. Now, is that unintentional or lack of awareness? Number 3, causes. Okay, so let's take the Indian society as an example. We're all aware of the patriarchy that pertains here, right? The male dominance. Many a times I find myself questioning the root cause of such violence against women. Nope, this didn't start today. It all began from Sati, and bam, 1,000 years later, here we are. This society reeks of male chauvinism, misogyny, entitlement, ego, superiority, and most of all, the mentality. Specifically, the mentality towards women needs to change. Physical abuse includes domestic violence, sexual harassment like rape, child pornography, molestation, acid attacks, female suicide, and the list goes on. So how about we look at a few numbers and facts to understand the severity of the crimes in India itself. Firstly, we all know we're a country of 1,369 million people, and about 48% of our population is constituted by females. That is approximately 657 million women. Physical abuse is reported by 455 million women annually. And these are just the reported cases. Innumerable cases go unreported every single year. Innumerable women are denied justice. Secondly, in the number of cases reported, sex trafficking, as you can see, is the most common, with 27.5 million women who are lured in with fake promises, abducted, and sold for post-prostitution. Thirdly, 1 in 3 women in India is likely to have been subjected to intimate partner violence. This accounts for a total of 20 million women who have been victims of domestic violence. They've been abused and tortured by their loved ones. A woman here in India is neither safe at home nor on the streets. Lastly, okay, let me tell you a short incident. I visited an NGO a couple of months back to provide sanitary napkins to the girls there. So I got to talking to a few of them, and I came across this beautiful little girl of 14. I asked her why she's here, and I just wanted to know her story. She told me that she was sexually assaulted by her own father at home. This was the same father who tried to marry her off into child marriage forcefully. This is a true story, and that's why she ran away. Now, there are 14 million women in India out here who are harassed by the men on the streets, their neighbors, their cousins, their brothers, their teachers, their house staff, and the list goes on. All right, so I'm an avid reader, and my dad has inculcated the habit of reading the newspaper every single morning since the very beginning. However, even after all the reading, I wasn't even aware of how and what the government of India has done to safeguard women. So let us have a look at that now, shall we? So in front of you, there's a short list of crimes against women and their respective laws under the IPC, that is the Indian Penal Code. I was of course aware of the laws pertaining to sexual harassment, domestic violence, rape, and women trafficking. But I genuinely wasn't even aware of the laws that safeguarded women from eve-teasing, catcalling, and assault to outrage modesty. Let's go over the two briefly. First of all, eve-teasing. It is defined as the unwanted remarks or advances by a man to a woman in a public space. Section 509 of the IPC states that whoever does so shall be punished with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year or with fine or even with both. Secondly, assault to outrage modesty. Under the IPC, it means whoever assaults or uses criminal force to assault any woman intending to outrage her modesty or knowing it to be likely that he will thereby outrage her modesty shall be punished with an imprisonment of 1 year, which may extend to 5 years and with fine.
There are 169 countries in the world, and India is ranked 133rd on the list of countries to be a woman by National Geographic and Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security Index 2019. India has to do a lot better. India has to do a lot to better the situation for women. Only laws will not help. Government representation, education, employment of women has to be drastically increased, and the social stigmas prevailing in the society have to be removed. There are countries which are heaven to women, where they face no discrimination, equal rights, and complete safety. On the other hand, there are some countries which still haven't yet made domestic violence as a crime. Some even have rules like if a rapist offers to marry the victim, he would evade from punishments. Their women have no voice at all. This gap has to be bridged for the world to be a better place for women. India is a country where per day, on average, 930 crimes against women gets reported. That would mount up to 350,000 cases per year, roughly. In India, Delhi, the capital of a country, is ranked #1 in crime against women and is considered the most insecure place for women in our country. Whereas Nagaland is the state which is considered most safe for women in our country as it has the lowest crime against women. We did our own little survey to know what the general public thinks or is aware of the topic reducing crime against women. In that, we were able to collect responses from 369 people, which included police personnel, psychologists, journalists, policymakers, lawyers, homemakers, and mainly students. Majority of them were youth of the nation. We tried to make this survey gender neutral, but we think there's still much social stigma about this topic, that it is a women thing, and males should not be concerned. We are saying that as 76% of respondents were female, only 24% were from the rest. So we asked people what they know about different kind of abuse which women face. So majority of our respondent thinks it's limited to rape, teasing, and domestic violence. And only 22% of our respondents thought that no, there is a very large variety of crimes which are faced by women. Other data which we collected helped us bust the myth that the abused victims are not much in the society. To our shocking results, 60% of our respondents or their known had faced one other type of abuse, and 16% of respondents were not even ready to talk on it. Out of all the people who claim that they have faced any type of abuse, we requested them if they are willing to share their suffering with us. And after receiving their replies, we clubbed the information in four types of crimes and came up with the result that 52% of respondents faced physical abuse, 22% of respondents faced mental and emotional abuse, whereas 15% are facing economical abuse and 11% social abuse. Whenever a crime happens, newspapers and news get flooded with debate on why crime happens. Everyone comes up with different opinions. Some says it was women's dressing. Some says she was inviting it. Some says it's husband's right. Some blame social structure or illiteracy. So we thought to reach the people and ask their opinion, what they think is the main cause of crime. 48% thought that misogyny is the cause of crime. Maybe because they had faced a lot of discrimination just because of the gender. 26% of respondents think crime happens because of wrong mindset or wrong way of development of one via wrong learning. 19.8% think that if women would have been financially independent, they would have been able to prevent it. And don't know why, but still 6.2% of respondents thinks that these crime happens due to inobedience of women. As our government has recently decriminalized marital rape, and there is no much prevention from parents discriminating amongst their children because of their gender, we asked people whether they consider it as a crime or not. 82.7% of respondents consider these as a crime, as this plays a vital role in women persecution and harassment. Approximately 74% of our respondents claim that they were aware of the laws which are there for women protection. So we also worked on defamation, insult to modesty, online harassment laws, which generally are not known or used less due to their complexity. we asked our respondents to select which they know about and which they don't. 40% knew about defamation, 53% about online harassment, and 51% about insult to modesty, from which we can say approximately 50% of our respondents didn't know about one or the other type dimension. Only 7.3% people were satisfied with the current implementation of laws. 71% respondent thinks that though there are laws present in country, but they are not being implemented properly, which if bettered would give positive result. 10% register their in contempt in the implementation of laws. More than 90% people think that self-defense skills would help women in fighting themselves out from any type of rough situation. And 98% strongly agree with the idea of provision of sex education school and colleges, which would help in the betterment of the current situation. Be it Sheila ki Jawani, Munne ki Badnami, Ab Karuga Tere Saath Gandi Baat, or toxic characters like Kabir Singh, wrong portrayal or objectification of women in the media is a long list. No, we are not saying it on our own. Approximately 89% of people think that media is playing wrong role in current situation. After all, psychological studies proves we learn, get affected, and do what we see.
All right, so in order to know the suggestions given by the society, we incorporated this question in our questionnaire. So we asked the society for their suggestions to reduce crimes against women. So first of all, education and awareness. Honestly speaking, we expected a lot of varied responses from everybody, which we did get to an extent. However, as you can see, 33.3% of the people answered education. Education includes awareness and sex ed in schools and colleges. This honestly sounds like a really cliched idea, doesn't it? When we call something cliched, we're implying that everybody suggests it and it's very common. Now, if it's actually that common an idea, it still hasn't been implemented in schools and colleges now, has it? Secondly, stricter laws. So we went through all the laws pertaining to the 4 types of crimes, right? Now, 13.24 people suggested stricter laws. That means either the laws of India are lenient or just not being implemented properly. I completely agree with the fact that laws need to be a little more stringent, but I'm also not happy with the implementation in India. Innumerable women are denied justice and their justice is delayed. This is also a cause of women several times not even approaching courts and try to get justice. Thirdly, self-dependency. Approximately 5% of the people suggested that women should be self-made and self-dependent. This is to be able to support themselves financially. All right. Lastly, I would like to point out a few other solutions that we got from people. Many of them emphasized on the face that the society should stand by the victims. This, in fact, is very apt. Many a times, a woman is left to stand all by herself with no one to support her. There are some who can't even muster the courage to help her, and some who just don't care enough to voice a woman's voice. We suggest doing so by NGOs and organizations like ANAN itself to reach out to women and stand by them and even just support them. So a few people also suggested counseling for women, banning soap operas, encouraging patriarchal mentality, self-defense workshops, promoting co-ed schools, etc. One of the most unique solutions was providing workshops to all women, men and women. No, not only to make them aware, but also to teach them how to deal with victims. The aftermath of such crimes can be horrendous and brutal, and the survivors are usually in a very, very vulnerable state. Therefore, dealing with them in order to make them feel comfortable is also something all of us should be acquainted with, and not just psychologists. Not a lot of workshops are conducted in India pertaining to this, and this is where we as a society can work on. All right, so here are a few solutions that Team Women Up came up with. So, firstly, strict enforcement of laws. Well, as we saw earlier, people suggested that the laws should be strictly enforced. However, we're here to address how to do it. Firstly, before laws can be made more stringent, all men and women should be aware of them. Men to understand the repercussions of such atrocious crimes, and women to know that it is illegal and there are laws that will protect them. The need for enforcement is more important to inculcate a fear in the minds of those who even think about committing crimes against women. If other men see the punishment inflicted upon the offenders, they will think twice before doing anything. Secondly, various petitions and PILs should be filed in order to make laws stricter. This, however, will take years, I agree. But we have to start now. We have to do it for our future generations. Secondly, promotion of literacy. Literacy is something all of us in the Zoom call are blessed with. This, however, isn't the destiny of most women who are the victims of crimes. Literacy can be promoted by organizing various literacy drives in slums, rural areas, and semi-rural areas. Drives organized by private NGOs as well as the government can help us come in contact with each family, each woman on a personal level. In fact, literacy doesn't just mean a school uniform or a classroom. We can start off step by step. We can start off recruiting by teachers willing to teach women in rural areas by teaching them in groups, under the sun, under the tree, anywhere. Thirdly, making women self-reliant. It is extremely vital to make women self-sufficient and self-dependent. We all know that. This not only safeguards them from financial dependency on their partners, but it also instills a sense of pride and a sense of confidence, which is step number 1 in fighting against crimes in India. This can be done by establishing support groups and starting off by teaching them skills. However, it is important for the movement to be widespread, to reach each and every woman. This can be done again via drives, inviting women to learn skills, support themselves and each other as a community or cooperatives. Now, escort groups. I'm sure you're wondering what they are and you've never heard of them before. Well, let me paint you a little picture. Imagine you're coming home from work or class late at night at 10 p.m. You're passing through a dark and dingy road with streetlights fluttering. At few meters away, you find a group of 5 men laughing loudly, drunk and gambling, sitting on the pavement. Now, wouldn't you feel safer or more comfortable if you had somebody by your side? You can't afford to have a bodyguard, can you? So an escort service provides you company, be it early in the morning or late at night. Trust me, this is needed. I have been petrified to my very core several times while walking home alone, even in my own residential areas. Escort groups would make sure they make you reach home safe and sound at minimal cost.
Practicing gender neutrality. Children are the future, and if we plant their minds with the right kind of regard that a person deserves, irrespective of the gender, then we will be able to cure a lot of problems from the root level. The parenting style should not be gender biased, and it should be free from any present established gender roles. Social taboos. The society is full of stereotypes, prejudices, and taboos. All of these together open a big room for the negative judgment and exploitation. People of the society should work in order to erode these taboos and make societal rules as per the current need of our, instead of just carrying out the orthodoxical age-old burden. Women should have and righteously deserve freedom to choose whatever they want for themselves without the fear of being judged, neglected, or harassed by the social norms and society. Spreading awareness in both the gender. Quality moral education should be provided to both the genders in terms of conduct. Everyone should be enlightened with the rights and the wrongs of behavior and conduct. Many a times we see the person facing harassment isn't completely aware of what's happening to her. And same case is often seen with the offenders. They didn't really know what they were doing was a misconduct. There is a lack of ethical and moral guidance in the society, and even it is occasionally provided generally for a specific gender and program. For example, the schools only give the good touch and the bad touch classes to females. However, it is needed by members of others gender too, so that they can know the difference between right and wrong and choose their behavioral conduct. Lesson objectification of women. According to a research of Barbara Fredrickson and Tommy Ann Roberts, when women are
Elena, I think we've lost Akarshak. Can you
All
continue?
right. No problem. I'm so extremely sorry for the inconvenience. All right. Lessening objectification
according
of
to
women.
am I here?
Akashak, your voice is cracking a bit. So I'll
You
continue.
carry on, sorry.
Yeah. According to a research of Barbara and Tommy Ann Roberts, when women are treated as objects, they momentarily view their own bodies from the perspective of the person objectifying them. In turn, they become preoccupied with their physical appearance and sexual value to others. The use or portrayal of women in India in media headlines and pictures to increase the appeal of media or a product to the detriment of or without regard to the interests of women portrayed, or women in general, which should be lessened at any cost.
Formation of support groups for women. Support groups offer a means for survivors to share their experience, strength. Research has shown how important it is for survivors to be able to help others, and that this can help to turn their negative experiences into something positive. Incorporate sex education in schools. In the simplest form, sex education is basically education about sexuality, contraceptive methods, how to prevent sexually transmitted diseases, the importance of protection, and last but not the least, attitudes and principles about sex. Teenagers need information and the right sources to help and protect themselves. This is because when they have no knowledge or whatsoever, they turn to media or even sometimes pornography to get information as their parents are not open enough about sex. Embolden girls to speak out. Many do not know how to report the abuse or lack access to police courts and services. Many more stay silent because of social stigma attached to violence against women, or they are simply too afraid to report their perpetrators. It is important more women speak up against the injustices and violence they face. Let us empower ourselves so we help not just ourselves but guide our helpers who and whosoever may need that help or support. And individuals can stop being bystanders. When a girl or woman tells her story, hear her, listen and back her up. Also engage men to become agents of change. Men need to be engaged as gender advocates, speaking out as active agents and stakeholders who can transform social norms, behaviors, and gender stereotypes that perpetuate discrimination and inequality, be it through its recently launched He for She initiative, which has already galvanized citizens around the world to sign up to do their part for gender equality, or its policy and program work. UN Women is actively engaging men and boys for women's rights.
All right, there is so much happening around us, yet we still ignore it and go about our own lives. In fact, you know what the scariest part is? That several women have been confined to their homes during this pandemic with men that have wronged them. These women are the victims of domestic violence. You know, they will survive the virus, but they might not survive the lockdown. It's time to change our attitude towards our women. Let's stand with them for them. Team Women Up is extremely grateful for your time, and we hope you all will do your bit in reducing crimes against women so that no woman ever feels violated because of any other man. Thank you so much.
Okay, wow. Great effort, Team Women Up. Hats off. Truly congratulate the team and mentor for the extraordinary efforts they have put in for this wonderful presentation. Thank you, Elena and team, for the wonderful presentation you have.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I would like to request Charu ma'am, the mentor of Team Women Up, to share her views and experience of these 15 days internship program.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, congratulations, team. You did a wonderful presentation. Congratulations. I want to start by, first of all, thanking the judges and Team Anon for joining us today for us to make our presentation. The Anon mentorship program has given an opportunity to some of the most promising young people from across India to move beyond their circumstances and to come together and learn. Team Women Up, the name of our group, was motivation for the team. It was thought out by our young minds, and it worked actually as a motivation for our team to address the topic of reducing crime against women with empathy. Working with this such a wonderful young group created such a positive energy, and it helped to motivate and build confidence. I must congratulate Akarshak, our sole male member in this Women Up team, but being there as our big supporter to bring in the other gender view and to help us. Elena, Mahima, Stuti, for their sensitive understanding of the topic and their well-researched, the amount of research that these children did, it actually came down from the understanding that they went in and researched on the topic, the kind of data that they got out, the laws, and to understand it. And secondly, the approach that they had in addressing the issue. I must congratulate them for that. I hope that my mentorship gave them a sense of motivation and help them develop newer skills. And I hope that it has resulted in their self-growth and a positive effect on which will have a positive effect on their academic and personal and social growth and development. I wish all the 4 young, bright people in my group all the very best in their future and hope to stay in touch with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, thank you for your views. Now, I would like to request the committee members to share their views regarding the presentation and if they want to ask anything from our interns.
Can I start?
Sure.
So I would like to congratulate Charu and all the 4 participants, Elena, Akarshak, Mahima and Stuti for the wonderful presentation. Of course, it is very obvious that you have done enough research in order to put up a presentation of this kind. And I was really amazed to see the kind of work that has gone behind that, the kind of collaborative work, the cooperation that has happened amongst the members and also with the mentor who is here in Delhi. When we are having this pandemic time and it is difficult to get in touch with people, the only source is through the phone or through the internet. But the kind of effort that has gone into doing this kind of work, so excellent. I'm sure all of you are going to do extremely well in your future life with the kind of 21st century skills that you have shown by way of presenting this. I'll come with the questions later. Let me give the opportunity to the other 2 judges also.
Thank you, ma'am, for such wonderful words of encouragement.
Harmeena ma'am, would like to request you for your views. Ma'am, you are muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's audible.
Now, I first really would like to congratulate the entire team, Akarshak, Elena, Mahima, Stuti. Totally impressed, and they've captured all aspects. I have just one thing that I would like to ask, and this is, what role do you think, anybody from the team, if they would like to answer, where do you think your home, the workplace, the mother, father have a role in why the girls accept these crimes, or the guy or the boys think that they can go ahead with this? Do you think, of this thing, do you think they're responsible for this mindset as well? And I'm talking about urban India, I'm not talking about rural India, in homes like yours and mine. Just what would your view be, yes or no, in our homes?
For me, yes, like parents are like held not responsible, but it's their responsibility to make sure that their children are going on the right path and their minds
are they doing it? Do you think they're doing it, or you think there's still discrimination in our homes and where they're told?
I'll say I have a elder brother. For me, I have never faced any discrimination of that sort, but I do believe that there are homes, even in urban city states, where there are discrimination happening at home.
In well-to-do homes. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I have a huge belief that we are a lot to blame for how our boys are growing up. the mothers and fathers of even the middle class. And just one more, do you also think in the workplace where less women are hired, it's a crime against women? Would you consider it a crime, or it's just or you don't think it's a crime? It's just one of those things that happen.
I think it's a crime. I think denying anybody the opportunity on the basis of their gender is absolutely not right. In fact, not even workplace. I've experienced that in school. I was up for a student council member and a guy was chosen over me. And
just on the basis of gender.
Exactly. And it doesn't feel nice. I think it's a crime. Yeah.
It is a crime. Yeah. To say that she'll take leave, she'll need this.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed, is my belief. Anyway, sorry. You've done a fabulous job. I'm truly impressed.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, now I would request Raman sir to share his views regarding the presentation.
Okay, sure. So first of all, very heartening to see the youngsters demonstrate a lot of passion in the subject, the way they presented it, and some of the nuances that they highlighted tells me that they did spend time working out the details in some of the aspects. So really appreciate. It's very heartening to see this generation take up very sensitive and serious issues and make a meaningful and impactful presentation out of that. So congratulations to all of you and to your mentor. I did have a couple of questions, and I think in interest of time, I think we probably only have a few minutes. I'll quickly share my questions, and if you can answer them now, great. If you would like to answer them offline, that's all right too. So the first question was more to do with some of the data that was used. I did see some very interesting data. One of the data that caught my attention, I think, was it Elena or someone else who used that data, was this figure of 455 million reported physical abuse. That number struck me as being phenomenally high for the population. So I didn't actually get the implication of that number fully. What that number means? Does that mean annual 455 million reported physical abuse? That sounds unrealistically high to me. Was that something else? If you have the answer right away, please shoot. Otherwise, you can let me know later. The second question.
Sir,
go ahead.
That was a typing mistake, sir. Like we'll come up with we'll correct it. Like it was an entire typing mistake.
Yeah,
no, actually, the thing is, while searching, I do have a link, and actually that is a typo. It is not adding up. I realized that. It's just that I didn't include a lot of crimes. For example, I mentioned female feticide, acid attacks. There are crimes that are happening. That's why it's probably not adding up to 455 million. And I do understand your concern. I will send that link, and if I find it, and I'll let you know if that's an error.
Sure. In general, for all you budding researchers, one rule of thumb for future research would be always cite the source of your data when you make presentations. I noticed that you're using a lot of data, but I didn't see the sources to those data as a backup in your presentation. Obviously, the credibility of the presentation goes up several notches if you do that. So see if you can do that for the future, but that's great. The only other question I had was with respect to the team dynamics and the way you guys collaborated. Two of you, I believe, are in Delhi. The other two are in Lucknow. Obviously, even within the same city, you wouldn't probably be in physical proximity. Obviously, use of technology, etc. But how did you guys share the load? And did you guys each individually do your pieces and then towards the end come together, or did you sort of collaborate and plan upfront to divide and conquer? I'm very interested in understanding the process that you guys followed. And
if I may start, and then you all can.
Please, ma'am. Please.
So how it started was when the team was, we got to know we were a team, which was on a Saturday. And I think the same day we all ended up having our talk where we had to remind ourselves, okay, work is to start from Monday. So that was the enthusiasm in the group. So what we did was we had formed one group, but apart from the group, we were regularly in touch on Zoom meetings. And in the very beginning, the first couple of days, we were able to understand the extent of what we were going to present. and what all had to go into that presentation. And then accordingly, the 4 of them decided how they would go ahead and divided the topics. So it was individual as well as group work together happening, where certain topics were taken up individually, but then they were all working together for the questionnaire and the research, the survey that had to be done, and they were sharing data amongst themselves. And that's how it all, I must say, I was fortunate to have these 4 young, bright people who were so sharp to understand, and we were able to get what we wanted within the first week itself. I don't think we were ever rushed that we have to finish our presentation or, we have to do this. They all worked. And in fact, we've had meetings as late as 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock into the night, because they are students as well, attending online classes, tuition classes. I'm working. So in the end, we all ended up, I must say the children worked it out so well. Any one of you who would like to add something more?
Yeah, I think Stuti and Akarshak, since they're in Lucknow, and I think Mahima, Stuti, Akarshak, neither of them are in school. I'm in 12th grade. So of course it gets a little difficult. Everybody has their own college schedule. I have my school online classes going on. And I remember we used to send each other our timetables a day before, like, okay, this is the time I'm free and you have to cooperate, and all of that had happened. So we jotted down our tasks and we divided it amongst ourselves. And then in the end, 2, 3 of us, we sat down to make the slides all uniform and everything, to make the editing and stuff. And for example, I'm not that tech savvy. Stuti is very good with Google Forms and all of that. So she did that. I am good with animation. So I made the video. So that's how we jotted down each and that's about it.
Okay, very good. Congratulations once again, and thank you.
Okay, coming to my question. The first question is, now when Elena was talking, you talked about female feticide. Female infanticide and feticide didn't appear in your presentation at all. Didn't you feel that it was part of violence against women? That's number 1. Number 2, you mentioned about sexual harassment of women at the workplace and the act that has come into being in 2013. So what was the basis of the passing of that act?
Ma'am, I stated the IPC laws. I don't think that was under I think somebody else had those acts.
I'm sorry, what was the second question? I missed that.
This is about the Sexual Harassment Act. They brought it about.
Act, the Sexual Harassment of Women.
Yeah. So what was the basis of the government passing that act?
Okay, I'll...
part of the research. Have you gone through it?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, Stuti, please
Yes,
go
Stuti.
ahead.
Ma'am, actually this act was basically the women working, like this harassment was a women workplace for the women, those who are working outside, like in the office. So where sometimes they are...
I'm not debating that, but how did this act come into being?
Yeah, because sometimes when women went to office, they were facing, this harassment with the bosses. Like they said, if you want this post, then you need to do that. So at this basis, this act was passed in 2013 for intervening that women are getting sexual harassed at workplace also. So we need to concern this also. So that's
okay. Let me answer that, since of course what you are saying is correct. It is against the harassment that happens at the workplace, which is very obvious from the very name of the act. But it came into being when a women's group in Rajasthan, Vishaka Act. So Vishaka, the women's group in Rajasthan, they filed a case against the Rajasthan government and against the central government, asking for certain fundamental rights of women to be protected. And that is how, based on the Vishaka guidelines, this act has come into being. So when you are doing research, probably a little more research could be done, so that, in case there is a question that is posed like this, you are in a position to answer that. And the first question about infanticide and female infanticide and feticide, there was absolutely no mention.
Yes, I apologize for that, ma'am. I did list it in examples, and I'm sure we should have elaborated on that, and I apologize for that. And yeah, we have learned about it in school a lot, and we have seen it. So I was working with this foundation called Sashakt Foundation, and I came across various stories. And this little girl, I have worked with a lot of women organizations. So this girl of 13, she actually had a 5-year-old sister. When I asked her for her stories, she did tell me about that her father actually murdered the kid, and it happens, and I'm sorry for not covering it. I'll do it. I'll keep it in mind.
Thank you so much. For children of your age, I think you have done amazingly well. So a big round of applause for all of you, all the 4 students and the mentor, Charu. Thank you.
Thank you, jury members, for your comments and questions. Now I would welcome Aarti ma'am to share her views regarding the session.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you all the juries to come over and look into the kind of work they have done. I am actually impressed. So we were actually thinking of, we are also working on this gender sensitization. For in school, we are doing workshops, and I think there is a lot of insight through you also about it. One question I want to ask, there was a survey shown in which you have said that the different kind of abuse, and you have shown that more than 50% is the physical abuse, and then followed by that is mental abuse and economic abuse. Somewhere I feel before any kind of abuse that it starts from here, like mental abuse, and after that it should be physical abuse. So actually, are you satisfied with this kind of theory in which I am saying that it is first the mental abuse and then followed by physical, because most of the people are not accepting that they are mentally abused. So what is your idea about it?
Yes, ma'am, we totally agree with this. Like when we were doing the social abuse, mental and emotional abuse, this was the first thing we stated in our presentation, that though mental and abuse though occurs after every abuse, but it is also the starter. Before any abuse happens, it is the start thing. First mental and emotional abuse happens, then it is followed by other abuses. Now, actually, ma'am, this data which we collected wasn't in that manner. We collected, we asked, it was a descriptive way answer. We clubbed it like this. The question was which type of abuse they have faced. So we got answers like people said they faced eve-teasing, they were mentally disturbed by this, or they got blackmailed from their partners, their pictures would be leaked, or they said their parents discriminate them, or they get beatings from their husband or some, we got that replies. According to their replies given, we clubbed that data like this. But we agree that for any type of abuse, before mental and emotional abuse happens, then it is followed by another one.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel there is a question by Puneet. Puneet, can you just put down that question?
Yeah, I think they have already answered it. It was about that 455 thing. They have said that it was a typo kind of thing.
Okay. Deepa, you want to ask anything?
No, I feel all the questions have been answered very well, and actually very amazing and very, I feel, mature presentation given by these children at their age. Quite mature and so much of awareness and research. Actually, very nice and amazing presentation. Very good. Well done, all of you.
Yeah, actually, the term that you decided, the team woman up. Actually, I was waiting from the first day when I got this name, and I was thinking what all things you will be covering. Thank you, Charu, for such a wonderful mentorship that you have done, and you have actually the kind of confidence I could see in all these interns. First day I met and today I met, I could see a change, a glow in their eyes. Okay,
actually, Charu ma'am, you have really built in the confidence in them.
Yeah.
When we interviewed them and when now today we are presenting, the confidence has really gone up.
Yeah. So it's been indeed a great pleasure and real surprise to hear about such versatile views from the very first team of the undergraduate group. The efforts put in by all the members are clearly visible and evident. I hope the team will be able to carry on with the very agenda and the title defined by them in their future as well, and make our country much stronger and giving the strength to the women. So teams Women Up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Aarti ma'am, Deepa ma'am and Puneet sir for your views. Okay, just to conclude the evening, once again I want to thank our jury members, our mentors and team Anon and the team Women Up for this delightful evening and your valuable time for this wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is for Aarti. Should we mark and send it right away, or you wait for all the presentations?
We can we can talk, ma'am. We'll tell you. Yeah.
Okay.